In Illustrator, we can combine objects into a group so that the objects are treated as a single unit. This way, we can move or transform a number of objects without affecting their individual attributes or positions relative to each other. It can also make the selection of artwork easier later. Here, we'll select multiple objects and create a group from them. First thing I'll do is select the scarf that's made up of these red and green shapes. So I can use a marquee to select them all, but if I go back and click on individual shapes, you can see that they are individual shapes, not groups. So I'm going to go up to Object and Group. And now when I click those individual shapes, it actually selects the entire group. So that's one of the great things about grouping, is that now we can move all of those objects at once and not have to worry about misaligning them. So I'm moving it over to the below the head of the snowman, and we can see it's behind that white body there. That has to do with the stacking order, and we'll work on that a little bit later. So I'm going to deselect that. And now we'll work on editing in isolation mode. If I click the snowman's hat, it's one object. It's been grouped. We can see, though, when I hover my cursor over there, that it's actually made up of 3 different shapes. But when I select it, it's actually a group. So let's say we want to change the color of that red band, but we really can't because it's a group. If I double-click it, we go into isolation mode. And you can see the change in the document window, and you can see that everything else is grayed out and we can't select it. We can only select the objects that make up the hat. But now we can select the individual shapes that make up the hat. It's actually ungrouped them temporarily for us to do that. So I'm just going to select that red shape that makes up the band there, and I want to change that color. So I'm going to go to the window menu and open up the swatches panel to see what other colors I want to choose. And I'll choose a green. You can choose whatever color you like. And there, it's changed that. And I'll just double click somewhere off of the object to exit isolation mode. And there we're back to our regular document. And if I select that hat, we can see it's still grouped. So that's one way of editing a grouped object, is to go into isolation mode. Another thing we might do is create a nested group, which is a group within another group. I'm going to use the selection tool to drag a marquee across the hat and head of the snowman. You can see now that they are separate objects. So I'll drag a marquee using the selection tool around both the head and the hat, and then I'll go up to Object and choose Group. So what we've just done is created a nested group where one group is within another group. And I'll click away on the artboard to deselect that. And if I select any area on that group, you can see that it's selecting both the hat and the head. I'm going to double click that nested group to go into isolation mode, and you can see now that it is both the hat and the head. Let's talk about object arrangement now. In Illustrator, as we create objects, they are stacked in order on the artboards, beginning with the first object created. So everything else that we create is stacked above that. And that's called the stacking order. And we can change the stacking order quite easily using the arrange commands. And that's what we're going to do with the scarf here. You can see that it's now behind the head and the body of the snowman. And to make it a little bit easier to select those objects, I'm going to go up to View and choose Outline. We can see now how this is making it easier for us to select these objects. And I'll select that top object that we grouped. I'll hold down Shift, and clicking on the outline, the path, I'll select the two other parts of the scarf. And then I'll go up to, well, I'll just go back to Preview, and we can see that those objects are selected. They're still behind the head and the body. And now I'll go up to Object, and down to Arrange, and over to Bring to Front. So now that changed the stacking order and brought those objects to the front. Now sometimes we're not really aware of the stacking order of our objects, and we need to select objects behind other objects. So what I'm going to do is drag one of those blue circles onto the right eye of the snowman. And I'm going to release the mouse but leave it selected. We can see that it disappears. The bounding box is still there because it's selected. It's actually sitting behind the eye, the white fill of the eye. So with that object still selected, I'm going to go up to Object, Arrange, and Bring to Front. And there it is. So all we did was change the stacking order, and I'll deselect that. Now I'll drag the other circle, blue circle, onto the left eye. This time, though, I'm going to deselect it. And that can make it a little bit difficult to know exactly where it is and how to select it. So with my cursor positioned over the location of the blue circle that I just deselected, I'm going to hold down either the Command key on a Mac or the Control key on the Windows and click until the circle is selected again. And you might have to click it a few times, but there I've selected the circle. And then I'll go back to Object, Arrange, and Bring to Front. So there we've learned how to group various objects and also a little bit about stacking order and arranging objects. And here's our finished snowman, looking very jolly, if a little loony.